There is one fundamental reason why men test women in dating: to see whether or not he can trust her. Trust her for what, you might say? Trust her to not be easily seduced by a richer, more handsome, more resourceful, higher status man. Trust her that she'll support him in his dream and his vision and his ability to provide for the relationship. Trust her that when he does do something wrong or does make a mistake, she's strong enough to put him straight and put him back on the right path. Trust her that she's able to think for herself and not be easily influenced by people outside of the relationship. Trust her that she chooses to be with him because of who he is, not who she wishes him to be. A man who is open and looking for a woman to be serious with will base his tests on whether you are the type of woman that he can trust within a committed relationship. And a man who isn't looking to settle down, he will be testing you to see what he can get from you, what he can't get from you, and whether he's willing to invest to get what he wants. So one of the first things that a guy will try to establish is if you're the kind of woman that he's gonna have casual sex with, if he's just gonna leave you alone completely, or whether you're the type of woman that he can plan a future with. And the answer that he comes up here will determine how he behaves with you. Now, there are so many ways in which men test women that if I was going to go through every single one, we'd be here till next week. But what I will do is give you the main type of test that the majority of men use really early on when he's getting to know you. But before we do that, December is the month of giving, and I want you to be part of my giving process. All you have to do is leave a comment below saying what you liked about the video, and then at the end say please donate to, and then insert a charity of your choice. The best comment will be chosen, and I will donate to that charity in your name, providing proof of evidence in my next upload. Let's all do a little bit of giving this Christmas. Now let's get into the video. Now, to fully understand the test that men carry out, it's really important that you understand what I'm about to say. A lot of women that I talk to are so fed up of men only wanting that one thing, and I completely understand this frustration. But at the same time, what many women need to understand is that many guys have experienced too women just trying to get a relationship out of him. This is the man's equivalent of a woman only wanting one thing. And so while women will be testing men to see which ones are just interested in having sex with her, men will test you to see if you're just only looking for a relationship, not necessarily because you're interested in who he is as a man. And to be honest, I've experienced this myself. It's happened a few times where I met this girl, we started dating, and then everything was going really nice. But then within the first couple of weeks of us dating, she wanted to be in a relationship. And my immediate thought was, why would you want to be in a relationship when you don't really know who I am yet? It was clear to me that they just loved the idea of being in a relationship, not necessarily because they were wanting one with me. They just liked the idea of what I might represent and how that would look for them. I mean, how could they? They didn't even know who I am, who I was, who I is. You know what I mean. So with all of that in mind, how do men test women? Well, the first test that they do is the consistency test. Like I said before, most men are testing women to see whether she is the kind of woman who's only looking for a relationship, or if she's actually open to something casual. And so one of the ways that guys determine this about you is testing your consistency level. See if what you say and what you do are consistent. A lot of women assume that if they say right out the gate that they're only looking for a relationship, then that's going to affect how a guy sees her and how he acts towards her. This simply is not true, and it rarely works. And the reason that telling a guy straight away that you're only looking for a relationship doesn't work is because most men, either through their own experiences or through their friends' experiences or other guys that they know experiences, most men have seen and heard plenty of women profess themselves to be the relationship only kind of woman, yet they behave like a sexually casual kind of woman who's just desperate for a commitment. It's not new for guys to be hearing a girl promoting herself as the relationship type. And unfortunately, these words are just falling on deaf ears, because the reality is him hearing those words doesn't reflect his experience. And this is why this is probably the first area he will test you on. So how will he test your consistency? By trying to sleep with you early on. even as early as the first date. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a test that he'd say no to. Of course, a guy's gonna sleep with you on the first date if you're up for it. But the part of him that is looking at you as a potential girlfriend needs you to say no. He wants you to say no to show that to be physical with a woman like you, it takes a little bit more investment than a chicken with a side of salad and avocado. Having sex with a guy really early on doesn't give him the emotional space to connect with you. And it doesn't build his trust in you to be 100% faithful to him for a committed relationship. I mean, sure, his lustful side is all for it, but the boyfriend side of him wants you to say no, wants you to make him wait, wants you to tease him a little bit, let his imagination marinate in his head a bit more. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, so when is the right time to sleep with him? Because you have wants and you have needs, you don't want to be waiting for too long. So if you're in a position where you don't know when to sleep with him, this is what you ask yourself. Would I introduce him to my friends? So if your friends were having a party this weekend, would you feel comfortable enough to bring him as your plus one? If the answer is no, then it's too soon. The next girlfriend test that we all know and love is the gold digger test. Whilst many women hold the view that most guys are just interested in that one thing, sex, a lot of men carry the view that a lot of women use men for money or use men for what they can provide for her, whether that's gifts or favors or a lifestyle. And I won't lie to you, I personally use this test every single time. One way that a guy will apply the gold digger test is see how you handle paying for things. So when it comes to financial matters like picking up the first bill, he's gonna observe whether you offer to go halves, whether you just sit there and expect him to pay for the both of you, or whether you actually offer to cover the entire cost yourself. Now, most men won't like the idea of a woman paying for everything, especially in the early stages. So don't worry, your bank account is safe. Even if you are a self-independent woman who doesn't want anyone to pay for her, that doesn't matter to him in the early stages. If a guy invites you out, it's reasonable to expect that he intends to pay for the both of you, unless he specifies otherwise. And even though this is the case 99% of the time, you should always offer and be prepared to pay your own share. Though it's highly unlikely that he'd actually let that happen, especially on the first few dates. When he offers, show that you'll pay, get out your money, but if he insists on covering for everything, then let him get the bill. His male pride won't accept anything less at this stage. And personally, I do this all the time. It's happened before where I took a girl on a date and the bill came. And I just observed what she did. Did she just look at me to start getting my card out? Was she distracting herself with her phone or her handbag? Or did she make the conscious effort to contribute to our evening that we had spent together? Well, this particular girl just stared across the table from me. Yep, not a peep out of her. And needless to say, that was the first and last date that we ever went on. Now the thing is, I had every intention for paying for the both of us. But what she demonstrated to me on that evening is that she is a woman who is happy to take from a guy that she doesn't really know that well without offering anything in return. And if I'm being completely honest, as a guy, we make assumptions based on our past experiences. As people, we naturally do this. So when you have a woman who doesn't offer to pay her share compared to a woman who does offer to pay, it makes her look incredibly low value in comparison. Offer to pay your way, but allow him to pay for you when he insists. The next girlfriend test is the vulnerability test. This test is so significant because this makes him fall in love with you. And this only really occurs a bit further down the line when you've kind of gotten to know each other quite well. Now, it's not about him feeling, can he pull you aside for a deep chat, Love Island style. No doubt, of course, you would be there for him if he came up to you like this. But it's way more subtle than that. And dare I say, probably one of the only ways in which us guys are actually subtle. Guys apply this vulnerability test by seeing how she is when he's not number one, when he's not on his top form. It's really easy to miss and it goes over a lot of women's heads. So I'm gonna give you some examples so you know exactly what to look for. The first time he tells you about his bad day, or when he tells you that he didn't get that job that he wanted. Or maybe you guys wanted to go somewhere, but he expresses to you how money is a little bit tight right now. He uses this to gauge how and if you support him. When you see him not being the alpha male that you're so used to seeing him being. I often hear from women that the guy that they're seeing doesn't really open up to them, hasn't really shared anything that deep or intimate or really personal to him. Now, for a guy to be vulnerable with a woman, it takes a lot of trust. You know, we live in a bit of a society where guys, we're not really as encouraged to open up the vulnerable side of ourselves. We don't have a lot of spaces where we feel we can be emotionally vulnerable. So it is gonna take time for him to build that trust with you. And how he builds that trust with you is by opening up with things that are very low stakes, like telling you about his off day or saying that he's not really good at a certain skill. Will you support him and raise him up? Or will you criticize him and tell him to man up? Guys show that little bit of vulnerability and most women don't even know he's doing it. But you'll know, at least now you will. If you're looking for a guy to spark up your love life, make sure you subscribe to this wonderful tribe. And as always, keep it slick.
How?